Hello my best friends. My name is Layla and this is Layla Flicks. The movie begins with a story about a flock of ducks living a happy life on a beautiful lake. They decide to explore the world, leave the lake, and set off. Two little ducklings are bored, but a predatory bird attacks, drives them into the forest, and he and his followers surround and beat them. Then we see that Mac is telling this story to his children to frighten them, reminding them they must never stray from the lake because it's extremely dangerous. He keeps warning them about every hazard they might face. Pam cuts in to calm the kids, especially little Gwen, who is terrified. Dax doesn't believe his father, leaves them, and goes to sleep. Although Gwen is afraid, she obeys her parents and goes to bed. Pam gets upset and scolds Mac for scaring the children. He explains he's doing it so they won't leave the lake and risk their lives. The two of them sleep together in the nest. The next morning, we see Mac and Pam playing with their kids, spending a joyful time together. They also teach them how to fly and how to swim fast. Dax splashes everyone and plays with Gwen. One day Pam and the kids are amazed when a group of migrating ducks arrives at the lake. Pam gets excited and asks Mac to go meet them. Dax and Gwen of course run over and welcome the newcomers to their lake. By chance Dax bumps into a sweet duck and apologizes. She tells him her name is Kim, introduces them to each other, and explains that she and her family are heading south. She's surprised to learn he and his family have never migrated, gets enthusiastic, urges him to bring his family and join them, and leaves to tell her father. Suddenly Mac shows up and yells at Dax and Gwen for going off without telling them. Gwen tells her dad it was Dax's fault and that he talked to Kim's daughter and asked her to marry him. Dax is shocked and tries to hit Gwen, but their father stops him. Kim's family interrupts, asking Mac and Pam if they'd like to join them and migrate together. Kim's mother says they're headed to a place called Jamaica and says it's on a glowing lake. Pam and the kids get excited and want to go. But Mac refuses, thanks them for the offer, and walks away, leaving Kim's family puzzled. They wish them well and take off. Dax says goodbye to Kim, who wishes him a good time at the lake, and she flies away. Pam goes to Mac and scolds him for what he did, saying they want to migrate and see the world. Dax and Gwen take her side and beg their father to migrate just once. Mac refuses, explaining migration is very risky and could get them killed at any time. He will never leave the lake because it's the safest place for them all. Pam gets upset and says they won't miss out on life just because he's afraid to leave a body of water. She explains how important adventure and migration are for them and the children to discover how beautiful the world is, telling him he needs to understand this before time runs out. She leaves him and walks away. That night we see Max still standing where he was, thinking about Pam's words, and he's startled to realize he's standing on his Uncle Dan, who was sleeping on a log. He helps him down into the water and asks his opinion about migrating. Uncle Dan tells him life on the lake is lovely and safe, but if he stays here he'll lose his chance to explore the world. The day will come when his wife and kids give up on him and leave him alone. Mac is shaken by Dan's words, rushes home, wakes Pam and the kids, excited and happy, and tells them he has decided they will migrate to Jamaica. Pam and the children rejoice, and Mac hugs them all. As soon as Gwen sees Uncle Dan, she runs to ask him to migrate with them to Jamaica. At first Dan refuses, but Gwen keeps pleading until he agrees. The next morning they get ready, spread their wings, flap, take off, and fly over the forest and trees. Pam, Dax, and Gwen are thrilled by the journey and fly along delighted. Mac, however, is puzzled to see all the other birds flying the opposite way and doesn't know why. After a while a storm hits, we see Mac and his family hiding from the heavy rain. Pam tries to reassure the kids, telling them migration will still be as beautiful as she promised. Suddenly they are terrified by a pair of scary, looming legs. The legs belong to a heron who approaches, welcomes them, says her name is Rinia, and asks why they are here. Because Mac and his family are frightened, they can't answer. Rinia tells them it's cold here and takes them to her nest. Mac and his family are stunned when they see that the nest is an abandoned, creepy-looking house. As soon as they enter, Rinia introduces her husband, Harry, a predatory bird who can't move from his spot. Mac and his family are scared and decide to leave, but Rinia stops them, tells them they must spend the night, and says she'll prepare dinner. Uncle Dan volunteers to cook, then wanders off and falls asleep, while Rinia rummages through the kitchenware. She brings back a pan, tells Mac's family that Harry used to be a skilled hunter but now can't move, so she brings food home, and asks them to sleep in the pan as if it were a bed. Afraid, they do as she says and huddle in the pan. Mac panics when he spots the remains of a half-eaten fish. Rinia apologizes, wishes them good night, and switches off the light. At night, Rinia and Harry sleep on the bed, but Mac's family stays awake and decides to leave, abandoning Uncle Dan asleep alone in the pot. As soon as they climb out, Rinia appears in front of them, asks where they're going, and frightens them, warning that at night predators hunt birds to eat them. Suddenly she lunges at Dax and Gwen, but Mac and Pam hold her back. Harry dives at the ducklings, trying to grab them. They dodge him and rush toward a gap between the wooden boards, but it's too small. In that moment Rinia tosses Mac and Pam onto the bed. Harry grips them by the neck, and Rinia corners Dax and Gwen, who are terrified and beg her not to eat them. All at once a predatory fish appears and swallows them. Before it can gulp them down, Rinia snatches the fish, pulls out Dax and Gwen, and saves them, explaining that at night those fish hunt any birds they can find. Mac and Pam are stunned to realize Rinia and Harry were protecting them, not trying to eat them. After that, they all sleep together on the bed, and Mac can hardly believe what happened. In the morning Rinia bids Mac farewell. He gathers Dax and Gwen from her, thanks her, and takes off with his family. Along the way Mac and Pam talk about what happened and how frightened they were, when Dax cuts them off, calling them to follow him quickly. They do, and marvel at the beautiful clouds. They fly among them, delighted, playing together for a long while, even tossing clouds at Uncle Dan and laughing at him. A little later they notice a red glow beneath the clouds as they pass over it, and realize they've reached the human city, a brand new world for them. At the last moment Mac dodges a crane, lands on a rooftop, and breaks just in time, only for the family to tumble off the building. Before hitting the ground they catch themselves, fly again, and dodge cars and barriers until they slip into a narrow alley and crash into a trash bin. Mac, startled, checks on the kids, then flies up to check on Pam. Uncle Dan, however, falls and gets hung up on a sign pointing toward the park. Mac and his family rush after him to help. Uncle Dan drops beside a sandwich and is thrilled, but before he can eat it a flock of pigeons surrounds and attacks him to steal it. Mac and his family arrive, drive the pigeons off, and Mac, in anger, calls them disgusting pigeons. The whole flock freezes. A small, tough-looking pigeon steps forward and asks who called them disgusting. Everyone points at Mac. Even Uncle Dan. The pigeon gets mad, corners Mac, and scolds him, introducing herself as Chambo, leader of the flock. She and the pigeons decide to beat him for insulting them, but Pam interrupts, apologizes, and suggests they share the sandwich. They agree. Uncle Dan gives half to the pigeons. Chambo then gets to know Mac's family and says if they need anything, they should ask. They tell her they're lost and ask how to get to Jamaica. Chambo says she knows someone who can show them the way and tells them to follow her. As she takes off, a car hits her, yet she survives and tries again, only to get hit by another car. After several attempts, they all lift off behind Chambo, admiring the city's beauty. By chance, Gwen finds a helium balloon and grabs it. Her father retrieves her and the balloon, and they continue. After a while, they reach a restaurant rooftop and are startled by a plane shaped like a tiger. Chambo reassures them, explaining it belongs to the chef who has her friend locked in a cage. She leads them down through a vent. Mac struggles to fit the balloon through. Finding the place empty, they climb out and head to Chambo's friend, a parrot locked in a cage. When Mac asks him the way to Jamaica, the parrot grows sad. He once lived there. He describes a far, maze-like route and says it's impossible alone, then cries, wishing he could see his family and friends again. Moved, Mac and the others decide to free him, but the cage is locked. The parrot says the key is with the chef in the kitchen, an awful place where they could end up as orange-glazed roast duck. Despite that, Dax wants to fetch the key, but his father forbids it. Dax tells him that just because he's afraid of everything doesn't mean they must be. Shocked, Mac decides to go himself. He slips out unseen, seizes the moment as a door swings open, and darts into the kitchen. He's startled to see the chef directing his assistants. The chef takes off his jacket and hands it to a helper. Luckily, Mac spots the key in the jacket and watches the helper hang it up and leave. Mac creeps forward, hiding behind tools so no one sees him, only to find Pam hiding inside a pineapple. The two sneak toward the key. Mac steadies the hanger so she can reach the jacket. Just before she takes the key, Mac panics at the sight of the chef preparing a roast duck to carve. He flinches and drops Pam, who grabs the key but falls, accidentally setting off a fire extinguisher that shoots foam everywhere. The furious chef chases Pam and Mac through chefs and stoves. Mac is horrified by a knife slicing an orange in half. Luckily, they escape and sprint out of the kitchen. Music starts up, crowds gather to dance, and Mac and Pam can't push through the crush. Mac gets an idea. He dances with Pam, weaving between stomping feet, and Dax and the others are amazed to see them dance so gracefully. They keep dancing, happy and radiant, until they slip away up the stairs, only to find the chef bearing down on them. They run back to the office and try to open the parrot's cage but struggle badly. Uncle Dan bumps Mac, making him swallow the key by accident. Pam grabs Dax and Gwen and they bounce on Mac to force the key out, but it doesn't work. The chef barges through the crowd and charges to the office. Chambo slams the door at the last second, but the chef breaks it down and is baffled to see the parrot still in the cage and no one in sight. While he searches, Mac and the family hide behind a pillar, circling to keep out of view. Unluckily, the balloon pops. Mac tries to control the helium, but the chef spots them. Mac jolts, releases the helium, whirls around the room, smacks into the chef, and coughs up the key. The parrot grabs it, unlocks the cage, bursts free, and soars, overjoyed. Once Mac and his family reach the roof, the parrot hugs them gratefully, tells Mac he's the finest duck he's ever seen, and promises to do anything to guide them to Jamaica. She also tells Mac he's an amazing flyer. He thanks her, says goodbye with his family, and they take off. The next day we see them flying through the sky toward Jamaica, full of excitement. Gwen needs a bathroom break, so they land and wait. She suddenly cries out that someone is watching her. They find a bird drawing on a cab door. They go down into the cab, explore, and discover stairs leading to another door. When they open it, they're surprised by a group of birds doing yoga. As soon as the birds see them, they rush over. Their leader arrives, welcomes them, and says his name is Jojo. He tells them they live on a farm cared for by two kind farmers. The farmers open the barn doors, and the birds pour out, happy and carefree. Mac and his family marvel at the farm, like the ultimate bird spa. They ride a tractor around, astonished by food everywhere, and especially by a woman giving a bird a massage. They hop off the tractor and decide to stay the night, splash in the water, play together, and enjoy a wonderful time. Gwen keeps thwacking her dad, pretending he's an evil dragon, and Uncle Dan joins in. Dax hears a truck and goes to watch. He's shocked to see the chef climb out, even more shocked when the chef pays the farmer to buy the birds. The birds think they're going on a field trip. Dax runs to Jojo, trying to stop him from boarding. Mac, puzzled by the commotion, goes to check. He spots the chef grabbing Dax and Jojo, so he distracts the chef and tells Dax to get back to his mother while he explains things to Jojo. Dax doesn't listen and dashes off to warn the other birds who are eating inside the truck. The chef stomps on Dax's wings. Dax tears free some feathers but is pinned with a fork and can't escape. Luckily Mac sees him, dives at the chef, attacks, and frees Dax. The chef corners them both, and before he can finish them off, Mac shouts for all the birds to get out of the truck. They swarm out and topple the chef. Mac seizes the moment, escapes with Dax, warns Pam and the others, and orders everyone to fly. They all take off except Dax, who can't because his feathers are torn. He climbs on his father's back, and Mac parries him as they flee at the last possible second. The chef, enraged, vows revenge. Mac and the flock grow tired and decide to rest in the city until morning. They land on a building. Mac argues with Dax, scolding him for disobeying and risking his life. Dax is hurt and walks away. That night the chef's plane reaches the same city, and we see him fuming, hunting for Mac and the others. Everyone is sleeping except Dax, who sits alone, sad. Gwen follows him, offers a hug to soothe him, and holds him close. Suddenly the plane reaches Mac's location. The birds panic and run. The chef casts a net, capturing all of them except Dax and Gwen, who hide before he sees them. Mac struggles but can't break free. The chef reels in the net, hoists the birds into the plane, and flies off. Dax can't follow, he still can't fly, and he and Gwen are heartbroken. On the plane the chef dumps the birds into a huge cage and locks it, then puts Mac and Pam into a separate cage, securing it with a skewer and keeping it beside him so they can't escape. Dax, still trying to fly, gets an idea when he sees parrot feathers on the ground. Back in the plane, Mac and Pam try to get out, but the chef blocks them easily. Pam despairs and loses hope, but Mac encourages her. By chance he manages to get a leg out of the cage. He gets an idea, has Pam do the same, and they tiptoe without alerting the chef, dancing silently as they move, then leap to stomp on the release button. The chef stops them at the last second. Furious, they bounce off his beak. He yelps and throws them. Before he can recapture them, the birds in the big cage bombard him with fruits and vegetables. Uncle Dan and the parrot act like a cannon, launching a terrifying shot that knocks him out and drops him onto the button that opens the plane. The chef and the cage he's holding tumble out, but the net catches the chef, and Mac grabs his hair at the last instant. He can't hold the weight, both begin to fall. They resign themselves to death, hugging and losing hope, when they spot Dax, who has managed to fly using parrot feathers. He streaks to the cage and tries to pull out the skewer. Gwen joins him. Together they tug with all their might, open the cage, and free their parents, who hug them, overjoyed. The parrot and the other birds smash the big cage, free themselves, and leave the plane, the chef dangling in the air. All the birds gather around Mac and his family, celebrate that they're safe, marvel at Dax's feathers, and continue their journey. After a long stretch they're adrift over open sea, unsure which way to go. Suddenly the water beneath them begins to glow. They're dazzled, especially Pam, who is delighted. Dawn breaks, and they discover they've reached Jamaica, an amazing island. They form up, spread their wings, launch, and sweep over the island. The parrot rejoices as he reunites with his friends and family, who celebrate his return. Mac and his family marvel at parrots soaring in the sky, then land on the lake and savor its beauty. They're surprised to meet Kim's family, who welcome them, and Kim admires Dax's new feathers. Pam thanks Mac for what he did. Mac thanks her for opening his eyes to the world's beauty. Pam hugs him, and they dance together on the beach. The parrot and all the birds join in, dancing along. In the next migration season, we see Mac's family preparing to head home. But Mac arrives and says he has found lost birds who must be guided back to their homeland. Pam is stunned to see the birds are penguins. Mac explains their home is the South Pole. Even so, he rallies his family, saying it will be a beautiful adventure and they'll discover new places. They set off for the Antarctic. The story ends. If you like it, don't forget to like, subscribe, check the backup channel for real movie summaries in the first comment, and catch the previous videos. Bye!